Welcome to I Finally Watched. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Alien Romulus. So this is my second episode in my I Finally Watched series. These are movies that are reserved for films that just became available on digital after being in the theaters for a while. Basically, movies that I was too lazy to go to the theaters for because I don't really like going to the theaters that much anymore. The first movie that I did in this series was Beetlejuice, so I'll put that in the description below. And today I'll be talking about Alien Romulus, a movie that I was fairly skeptical about going into because if you hadn't noticed, I have a framed Aliens poster behind me. Both Alien and Aliens are two of my favorite movies of all time. Aliens in particular is probably in my top 10. So they're two movies I hold very near and dear to my heart. And to be quite honest, as far as the rest of the franchise goes, I have some opinions on that. I actually did a video about my relationship with the Alien franchise a few months back, so I'll make sure to put that in the description below. But to recap the Alien movies that came before Alien Romulus, both Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Prometheus is a movie that I'm pretty mixed on. It has some good ideas that aren't really fully explored in ways that I feel were fulfilling. Has some good moments, but a lot of stupid character stuff, a lot of dumb plot stuff, and then, of course, all the interesting elements that Prometheus was trying to build up get completely thrown out the window in Alien Covenant. And I hate Alien Covenant. It's actually one of my most hated movies. I know that movie has some sort of a cult following that's been developing ever since it first came out. I have not heard one convincing argument as to why Alien Covenant is good. Sorry, I think that movie completely fucking sucks. So to say that I was, skeptical going into Romulus would be an understatement. But I am happy to report that I was very pleasantly surprised by this movie. It's not a perfect movie by any means, and we'll get into that. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed Alien Romulus. I was pleasantly surprised, and I think a lot of that boils down to me going in with slightly low expectations. And it also boils down to me not really liking an Alien movie in my lifetime. And what I mean by that is I love Alien and Aliens, but these are movies that predate me by decades before I even existed. So since I've been alive and watching movies, I haven't really enjoyed an Alien movie that's come out the time that I've been into watching movies. This is the first one. And I didn't even really think about that until I was like halfway through this movie. I'm like, man, I'm really enjoying this. Hey, this is kind of new because I'm not used to enjoying a new Alien movie. I'm not used to that. And so that definitely contributed to my enjoyment of the film. I've heard a lot of criticisms about the movie. I've heard criticisms that the movie's too fan servicey, which there are definitely elements that go overboard with that. And my biggest flaw of the movie comes in that area in particular. We'll get into that. I'm a big fan of Red Letter Media. And I saw their review of this when it came out, and it was really harsh. They were like, this movie's terrible. I think Mike said it was one of the worst movies he saw this year.
This movie was a roller coaster of emotions.
Yes.
Because it started off literally about 30 minutes through. I thought, wow, this is like the best movie I've seen this year. And then that goodwill suddenly turned to, this is the worst movie I've seen this year.
And I was like, oh, wow, well, that's unfortunate. And then I watched it and I was like, this is not even close to terrible, not in my opinion. Their reasoning for it kind of falls into what I was saying already, is there's a lot of fan service and there's a lot of recycled ideas. I'll get into why that didn't really bother me, but first let's just do a brief synopsis of the film. And by the way, this is going to be fairly spoiler heavy. So I'll just say right now, if you don't want to be spoiled, I recommend this movie. I especially recommend it if you love the first two Alien movies, if you love the tone of both of those movies. Alien Romulus kind of has elements of both. You get the horror elements of the first movie and you get the action, more suspense elements of the second movie, and it works really well. And you'll also enjoy this movie if you didn't enjoy Prometheus and Covenant and you're just wanting to enjoy a new Alien movie, I think this one will satisfy. So that's my recommendation before getting into spoilers. So with all that being said, let's get into the plot of the film. So the film revolves around Rain and her android Andy that her father gave to her before he passed. They both live on a colony mining planet. They work for the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. And Rain wants to get off this hell planet because it looks pretty terrible. And she has a dream of going to the planet Yavaga. I don't know if that's a planet that's already been established in the Alien universe. Maybe that was something that was mentioned in like some of the comic books or maybe video games, or maybe that's a new thing. I'm not sure. But so she is denied the request to get off the planet by her company, and she's forced to work for the company for another 5 to 6 more years, I believe. And then some of her friends have an idea about how to get off this planet. There is an abandoned space station that is orbiting around this planet. And their idea is to go over there, scavenge it for equipment, get everything they need to basically leave this hellhole. And that's one of the best aspects about this movie, is that the plot is very simple. This is a back to basics kind of film. It's a lot more grounded. It's a lot more intimate than the previous Alien movies. And I think that's something that was definitely needed for this film. And right off the bat, I really loved both Rain and Andy. Andy in particular, who's played by David Johnson, who I have not seen in any of, this is the first time I've seen him in anything. He gives the best performance in this movie. Similar to that of both Prometheus and Alien Covenant, the android is kind of like the best aspect of the movie. I like Rain a lot too. I think Kaylee Spaney does a really good job with that character, and I think the chemistry and the bond that she shares with David Johnson, their chemistry is phenomenal. But Andy is such an awesome character, and David Johnson's performance is so amazing. Like, it's on par with Michael Fassbender, maybe even better in some regards. I'm sure that might be controversial, because I really like Michael Fassbender in both Prometheus and Covenant. He's kind of the only thing I like about those movies, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, no, Andy is awesome, and he has a pretty significant character shift later on in the movie. So the reason that we find out later in the movie, spoiler, that they want Rain to come with them on this journey isn't just because they want her to leave the planet with them, but it's mainly because that she has an android that can interact with the spaceship, the mother program on the spaceship, which has been established since the first Alien movie. And he can like unlock doors and communicate with the computer and all this stuff. And so there's a moment in the movie where Rain needs to take out the chip that is that's kind of damaged, that's established early on in the movie. It's that he's not a fully functioning android. So she updates his chip with another android on the ship, an android that I have a problem with. We'll get into that. He turns into a completely different character for the majority of the second act of the movie. And the way David Johnson shifts his performance into playing that character is seamless and fantastic. Really, really good stuff. And of course, as our characters enter this abandoned space station, they start looking around. As we all know, some bad shit is about to go down. That rhymed unintentionally. So most of the plot revolves around the characters basically trying to leave the spaceship alive, since there are face huggers on board. One of the crew members gets implemented, or impregnated rather, with a face hugger, and that results in a really gnarly chest bursting scene. But that kind of goes into some of the flaws I have with this movie. So not everything is really consistent in terms of prior Alien movies. One of the big examples of that is how fast that character gets impregnated by the face hugger, and then the chest burster happens within, I think, like 5 minutes of screen time. Like, we see her with the face thing, and then 5-6 minutes later, it's already bursting out. Like, that doesn't really compute, because in the first Alien movie, it takes a long time for John Hurt's character to get implemented. He's like in like a comatose, comes back up. It's like hours in the logic of the movie. And the actual runtime of the movie, I think it's anywhere between like 20 minutes to like a half hour or something like that, maybe even longer. But this movie is like, it's a much more faster pace. It's not trying to be a slow burn. So that doesn't really compute. That's more of a nitpick. That's not a big deal to me, but that was something I noticed. So I'm like, wow, that's a lot faster than other scenes we've seen in the franchise before. But that's not that big of the deal. The bigger problem I have is the character. Well, it's not Ash. So Ian Holm's character Ash, he's an android. He comes back in the form of a new android. They justify this as he's the same model as Ash, but he's a different android altogether. And this kind of goes into the ethical question of bringing back dead actors with CGI. I've had a problem with this ever since this first started to become a trend, all the way back with Rogue One when they brought back Peter Cushing. And then I had a really big problem with it in Ghostbusters Afterlife when they brought back Harold Ramis. And that scene really bothered me because they were, bringing back a dead actor, as well as using it in a emotionally manipulating way. That really didn't sit well with me. Here, it bothers me in the sense that the android doesn't need to look like Ash. It can literally look like any android. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the story. It doesn't have to be Ash. The reason they bring back Ash is for blatant nostalgia bait. He even repeats some of the same iconic lines that he said in the first movie. And that's something that the movie does too, is that they recycle several lines. I prefer the term artificial person myself, or get away from her, you bitch. And it's like, you don't need to... Like, here's the thing. I'm not anti-fan service. I know why certain movies, especially movies like the Alien franchise, where you have a long, enduring franchise and, you want to have certain callbacks to have audience engagement. I understand that. But there's a point where you can go overboard. And this movie was kind of crossing that line a couple of times with several callback lines, bringing back Ian Holm in a deepfake AI CGI thing. And by the way, the CGI did not look good. It looked very noticeable. The uncanny valley effect was very obvious. Didn't really sit well with me. But as far as everything else in the movie goes, I just had so much fun. It was the first time I was scared by an alien movie in a long time. I didn't find Prometheus or Alien Covenant to be all that scary. I just found them to be kind of dumb, especially Alien Covenant. But no, this was the first time that it brought back that classic tension from both the first two movies. You feel that same kind of tension. And it's been a long time since I felt that watching an Alien movie. So I really enjoyed that. The xenomorph stuff in this is the best it's been since Alien and Aliens. And one of the best aspects about the xenomorphs in this movie is that they're not overutilized. In fact, they're only in a handful of scenes, but anytime a xenomorph shows up, it has impact. And they don't over-rely. So, the xenomorph is still mysterious. He's not on screen all the time. So I think the movie took cues from Ridley Scott's first movie in terms of how much do we want to show the alien. And there's more than one alien on board. So I loved all that stuff. And there's a lot of just really neat ideas that were introduced in the movie. I loved the idea of the face huggers sensing people based on their body heat, and so the characters know that, so they lower their body temperatures, or they try to have it be the same temperature as the room that they're entering, and the face huggers don't know that they're there, and so they have to very carefully walk through. That is such a great idea. I thought that was such a fun concept. And then maybe my favorite scene in the movie is the zero gravity stuff. First of all, visually speaking, this goes right into the zero gravity stuff. Visually speaking, this is one of the best looking movies I've seen in a while. It's up there with Dune 2 and Godzilla -1 in terms of just really beautiful looking visuals and a lot of practical stuff too. They're using real sets. I believe most of the xenomorph stuff was used with an actual puppet and animatronics. There are some CGI stuff here and there, but even the CGI looked gorgeous. It wasn't cheap bullshit Marvel or DCEU CGI. The CGI in this looked outstanding. And the movie was under $100 million. This is an $80 million movie. And to think that there was a time where they were going to just release this to streaming and not do a theatrical release, I think they made the smart move about releasing this theatrically. I almost regret not seeing it in a theater because, man, so many great visuals in this movie. But yeah, that zero gravity scene is one of my favorites in the movie because earlier we establish that Andy tells dad jokes to Rain to help her feel better in times where she's not feeling good. It's a very sweet little character trait that they throw in the beginning of the movie, but it ends up having a great payoff because there's a scene where they're all hope is lost. They feel like they're about to die. The xenomorphs, a bunch of them are coming their way. And and she's like, why don't you tell me some dad jokes? And then he tells a joke where the punchline is about zero gravity. And she's like, zero gravity. And then she turns off the zero gravity. Oh, and that scene was just so badass. It was so cool. And you've never seen that in an Alien movie. So while I do agree that this movie does recycle a lot of ideas and elements, which, by the way, we'll get into the ending. I'm going to talk about the ending. So I know the movie recycles a lot of stuff that we've seen from previous Alien movies. It didn't really bother me because I was just constantly entertained. And it introduced enough new elements that I thought were really cool. Like the facehugger element with the body temperature stuff I thought was awesome. The zero gravity stuff. The way Andy would work when he gets his chip taken in and out, when he gets rebooted. Those are things we've never seen in Alien movies before. We even see some new tech. We see a gun that's very similar to the Colonial Marine assault rifle that has a self-aimer thing that I thought was really neat. So there's a lot of great little world building stuff that add to the world of Alien in a way that I thought was really cool. So I really appreciated all that stuff. And then we get to the ending of this movie. Now, the ending seems to be the most controversial aspect. I kind of liked the ending. Now, before I talk about the ending, I have to talk about my relationship with Alien Resurrection. So I watched Alien Resurrection for the first time either early this year or late last year. But I watched it for the first time recently. And I ended up liking it a lot more than most people. It's super campy, pretty stupid, but thoroughly entertaining. But one of my favorite aspects of that movie that's very divisive amongst Alien fans is the xenomorph human hybrid thing, which I thought was such a cool, gross idea that I just liked how ballsy and bizarre it was. So this movie does that, but it does it a little bit differently. So they bring back the black goo element from Prometheus, which I don't really know how I feel about that, because like I almost wish we would be like, all right, Prometheus was kind of a hit and miss. We can just let that one go. But I guess they wanted to keep it tied into the universe. All right, so it wasn't a deal breaker for me, but that was one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay, so they're trying to tie it into Prometheus. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. But the black goo gets into a pregnant woman who is one of the characters with Rain and Andy and Rain's ex-boyfriend. And so this movie takes a note from both Alien and Aliens, where there's a surprise fourth act where you think our characters are safe and it's like, nope, we got a new threat. And the threat on board is I think it's an alien human hybrid that's also one of the Titans from Prometheus, because he has similar face. Whatever it is, it's super fucking creepy, legitimately unnerving, and I loved it. I loved how creepy and gross it was, and I don't know, that some people really hated that because it was a direct callback to Alien Resurrection, which is a movie that a lot of people, especially in the Alien franchise, consider to be the worst Alien movie. This is a hot take, but I would rewatch Alien Resurrection before I'd rewatch Alien Covenant again. That's for sure. I don't hate Resurrection. I don't hate it. So, in fact, I might do a video on Resurrection in the future. I might do a rewatch after watching this and maybe give my thoughts on that. But no, most of the stuff in this movie really worked for me. I liked how small scale the story was. Outside of Andy and Rain, the other characters were fairly disposable, but this is an Alien movie. You got to have fodder. So that didn't really bother me that much. There are so many great scenes of tension. All the xenomorph stuff in this was fantastic. And it was just refreshing to watch this after, having to revisit Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which I did a few months ago, actually. And just being like, I wish I liked these movies more, but I just don't. So Alien and Aliens, that's all I need. Now I need Alien, Aliens, and now Alien Romulus. This was a fun movie. I can understand some people not liking it for being too fan servicey, for not taking enough risks. For me, it was just refreshing seeing an Alien movie feel like an Alien movie again, as opposed to whatever the fuck Prometheus and Covenant were. I don't hate Prometheus. I just think it's heavily flawed. I hate Covenant. So fuck that movie. But I liked Alien Romulus quite a bit. And it seems to be that most fans seem to really like this movie. There is only a handful that don't really care for it. But I thought it was great. So what did you guys think of this movie if you've seen it? Mention in the comments below. Is this the third best Alien movie? I think it's in the discussion. So let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this movie, where you would rank it amongst the rest of the Alien films. And as always, thank you guys for watching.